All right, I'm live. It actually worked. That's amazing. If you're watching this, hopefully you're watching this because you want to learn about Balsamiq and about wireframing and how to use it. Now, I'm in my parents' basement right now. I've been displaced from my home. It's all ripped up with renovations. There's too much noise being made. Electricity's going on and off. So if you saw that whole event where that guy's family came bursting in on BBC and he was like shepherding kids out, my parents could literally burst in the door at any second here, and I'll have to try to shepherd them out. So I'm going to apologize in advance if that happens. Parents, you know, who can deal with them? But I want to start by just talking about why wireframing is important, why this is a skill that you should have, why it's worth cultivating, and then I'm just going to dive right in, and we're going to be building out a wireframe for my new project, Billionaire Balloon, which I'm super excited about. It's totally serious, going to make me a millionaire. So why do we need to wireframe? Why is wireframing important? Why, as a copywriter, should we be concerned with stuff like UX and design when our job is just to supply the words? That's the mistake that copywriters tend to make, is thinking, oh, my job is just to supply the words, and leaving it up to the client or the designer to decide how to present those. Visual hierarchy is the big, I guess, buzz phrase that I'm going to use here to say, that's what we need to communicate to people. How our words are presented, how the things that we write are put out into the world will impact how they're consumed. And I'm going to show you an example of that when I'm going into Balsamiq, because oftentimes the things that we think are succinct, the things that we think are really well written, don't translate very well when you try to actually push them live, when you try to actually work them into a design. The other thing that can happen is, and I'm sure if any of you have written for the web, you've seen this, you write something that's beautifully written, you even break it up in your Word doc, and you've got your headline, and then you've got your body copy. And then when it goes live, you come back and you wince because they've done something bizarro, like taken your subhead and put it in a completely different section, and it's lost all its power. Or they've dropped this gigantic image next to your words that doesn't help communicate anything. So when you can wireframe, you can show designers and your clients how this might actually look live. It's good for them to get a picture of how your copy is actually going to function, how it's going to flow. It's good for you to understand how the copy you're actually creating is going to translate to the web. I can talk more about that. I can show you some examples if you're interested, but for now, I'm going to dive straight into Balsamiq. So if you don't have Balsamiq, you should go right now. They've got a free trial, no affiliate program, no link or anything like that. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but you can download it, get the desktop version free for 30 days, and follow along to what I'm about to show you. Because there are going to be a lot of things I was realizing as I put this together where I'm talking about specific keys to hit or different things that you can do inside of the platform. So you might want to have that trial. So I'm stalling for you right now so that you can go and download that. And time's up. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully there's nothing embarrassing on there. It's like gazing into an infinite funnel right now. So I'm just going to drop that out of there. All right. So let's dive in. This might be kind of what your interface looks like the first time you log into Balsamiq. It's a blank slate, and it's beautiful, but how do you actually get going in here? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is up in this corner, you're going to want to enable these UI elements. So all of these things here, this is the UI library. All these things here we're going to call controls. So these are the things you're actually going to use to build your page. But there's just one problem, and that is that for some reason by default, Balsamiq makes this the ugliest possible arrangement. So for example, if I sent something that looked like this to a client and then dragged in some text, and don't worry, I'm going to go through all of these individual elements in a second. But if I wrote, billionaire balloon is best, nice alliteration there, and it came across in Comic Sans, there's no way that I'm going to be taken seriously. So the first thing we need to do is not make this look like a Comic Sans hell on earth. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this thing up here. This is your project info. And now you can switch from sketch to wireframe. So to show you that, I'm just going to drop in browser, and I'll again be going through this. This is what it looks like before, like someone's unintelligent child drew it. And when we swap it to wireframe, ooh, polished. Sucks way less balls, right? That looks actually kind of legit. The problem is we've still got this nasty Comic Sans in here. So this is going to be your default font unless you otherwise specify. So when I'm putting these together, I like to just go with Arial. If you really want to impress your client, you can get a Chrome extension called What Font and look at the fonts they're already using on their site. You just mouse over and it shows you. And then you can actually use their exact font in your wireframe and they'll be super impressed. So how do we get started? We've got our controls all here. It's this big mess of different things. We want to learn how to actually use them. We've got our project information here, which I'm going to close off now. And so where do we begin? We're going to try to build out, this is an actual wireframe that I built for a client to show them. And no, it's not the most beautiful thing in the world. It doesn't have perfect padding, but it's a hell of a lot better than giving them a Word doc and leaving them to sort it out. So we're going to build something like this for Billionaire Balloon. And if I haven't told you about Billionaire Balloon, it's my brand new idea. It's going to make me $1 million. I'm basically going to have rich, snooty people pay me to arrange for them to go up in a hot air balloon and throw money down at people as a marketing stunt. So that's what we're going to do right now. So to start, we want to have a browser just like this one that I've got here. So I'm going to delete that and we'll start from scratch. So this quick add is your best friend when you're putting stuff together. So just type in browser and you'll pull that in. Now you want to make sure that your sizing here is legit, is the proper sizing, because if you try to cram everything in some tiny little window like this, it's not going to be true to life. So there's no science to this, but when I learned this from Joanna Weeb, the sizing that she gave us was as follows. So if you right click and go properties, now you've got the ability to edit this, to change it up. So we're going to do a few things. First, we want our width to be 1350. You want to make this huge. So I'll show you what that looks like. And we'll scroll out a little bit. You want to give yourself the space to actually operate. And then I'm going to give you a shortcut here. You could drag it all the way down, but rather than that, we're just going to set it for the max height right away. So 4016, sorry. And there we go. So now this is going to go down all the way to the bottom of the page. Balsamiq, the annoying thing about Balsamiq is it has a limit. And you will, believe it or not, for as gigantic as this thing seems right now, you will run out of space more often than not when you're putting together wireframes. So we're going to have that 4016. And then if you do run out of space, this border style here is really nice because right now it's just a firm cutoff. But what you can do is change it, and it kind of looks like it was torn. Then you can duplicate your browser here onto a second side and continue the page. But I'm just going to put it back like that for now. We want to add a scroll bar. So that'll look kind of snazzy. You can see that there. So now we've got this here. What you can do, you can get really nice. We're going to call this Billionaire Balloon by double clicking on the browser. Then you can add your client's URL. Stressful typing live, I tell you that much. And then it'll pop that right in there. Beauty. We've got a nice title tag. We've got the URL. What a wonderful time we're having. I feel a bit like Bob Ross painting happy trees right now. But this is not enough. As you can see on my other wire, whoa, no, I don't want to do that. Thank you very much. I've got this rectangle inside, and that's going to define where the actual active window, what people actually see. Because when you go to a website on the internet, what you don't see is end-to-end just website. So what we're going to do is drop a rectangle inside of that browser that we just created. So you can find this under containers. That's where you'll find rectangle. Or again, just use quick add and pop that in. And so we want this, like I said, to kind of frame the inside. Again, I'm going to give you the shortcut here. So the size that we want this is 1200. This is our active space for width. And then we're just going to make that go 3900 to give us a little bit of padding on the top and the bottom. So you can see it goes all the way down here. Now, we don't want to have something that looks all mangled and stupid with your rectangle being like off to one side or looking totally ridiculous. So you'll notice if you grab it and drag it, when you hit the center of the browser, it automatically will kind of snap there. And so that's how you know you've found center. But as we add more elements, it's going to get a little bit more confusing. So a quick way, a little cheat, if I set this off, is to click on the two things you want to align. So starting with Billionaire Balloon in the browser, and then click on this rectangle. I'm going to right click, and now we've got this huge, huge, huge fold out menu. But don't be overwhelmed. What we're looking for is there's all of these align options. There's hotkeys for these. I've honestly found it faster just to right click. So we want to align them in the center. And you can see now they've snapped together. They're perfectly aligned. So if for some reason you're having trouble figuring out if something's actually centered, you can align it by manually clicking on the two, and you'll be good to go. So now we've got this nice looking browser, and we want to put some stuff in it. And so I'm going to show you, I'm going to close off that information window. Now I'm going to show you, we want to start by building out a nav bar. If we look at this other one here, we've got this nice section up at the top where we can show the client, okay, this is where your navigation would live. And you don't have to, like I mistakenly did one time, manually create a bunch of text or try to snap it and align it all perfectly. I'm going to show you exactly how we break this out. So we go back to our butt naked plain wireframe here. And we're going to start with our best friend, the rectangle. So we're going to take this rectangle and just drag it in. And you can always right click for properties if you want to edit it up. We're going to give this about a 200 width. Line it in the center. Let's give it about a 200 height as well. Then we'll just drag it across inside. Now, here's something that you don't want to have happen. As you add more elements, what can happen is you go to click on this, you accidentally click on this, whoops, there goes your browser. So for the browser and the big rectangle in the back, we're just going to right click, and we're going to lock it. And this just locks it in place. So now you don't have any risk of grabbing that thing and flinging it all over the place like some drunken ape. So we've got that set. And then we know that this big rectangle is not going anywhere. So we're going to lock that rectangle too. So now those are stuck in place. I can do all kinds of stuff. Nothing's going to move around. You can always unlock by right clicking and doing the same. And then this is totally mobile. So I'm going to plunk that down, and we're going to give it a different color background. So you can see there's all of these functions here in the properties side. You can give it a different border. You can give it a tear off. You can give it just normal, which is what we'll stick to. But we're going to change the background color, and we're going to change it to gray just so that it's kind of separate. And we've got no links. Just leave this alone right now. You don't want to add a scroll bar to your nav bar. That'd be weird. You psycho. So what we're going to do now is we need to add a home. We need that links bar. So let's start with the links bar. I used to do this by just manually dropping in text, and don't worry, I am going to show you how to add text in a little bit. But rather than do that, you can save yourself so much time by just going, I've got this pre-built for you, but it's friggin' teeny tiny. So we want to change that. And actually, this reminds me something I want to jump back to here. If you go to your properties, you can see right now, and I click this right-hand thing in the corner, this changes all the defaults. So I could still go back to Sketch if I was crazy, or go back to Wireframe. You can see it changes it on the fly. When you're working in Balsamiq, when you're creating wireframes and pages, the smallest font you want, period, other than having micro copy, your average text size is going to be at least 18. And you can see even that feels kind of tiny, but you're going to see when we start adding body copy, it adds up real quick. So we'll close that off. I'm right clicking again to just go back into properties for this. And now we've got this back so we can edit it manually. So we want it a little bit bigger. We're going to make this text size, let's say 24, and drop it there. But not every set's going to have home, products, company, and blog. So by double clicking on it, you can edit these things. All you have to do is make sure there's a space in between each comma. So we've got billionaire balloon here. We're going to have a Y billionaire balloon, and then we're going to have a services section, and then we want to call to action the nav. So give me all your money is nice. And now we want to position this somewhere where it's not going to look totally crazy. So again, Balsamiq gives you a huge leg up here. You can see as I drag it around, if I wanted to center it like some sort of freak show, I could do that because you can see as soon as I drag it over center, it pauses there. But we want it in this bottom corner, and Balsamiq, being the smart product that it is, can show me where it snaps with a little bit of padding. So all I'm doing is dragging until I get that snap. Beauty. But here's the cool thing. We can actually, if you wanted to say have different pages in your wireframe, you can change things, the properties of this link bar. For example, you can have one of these be selected. So we're going to say that we're on the Why Billionaire balloon page, and it'll actually change it on there. You can add live links. So you could link to an actual web address so that when you share these wireframes, they're active. One of the coolest things, and we don't have time today to cover it, but you can actually link your mockups and create a sort of prototype in here that actually works so that you can give them a live demo and show them, hey, as we click through, here's how all the different pages would go. We're not going to put in any actual links right now, but I just wanted to show you that functionality to have it in your back pocket. So I'm going to bump this a little bit down to 20. Again, it's just what looks good for your template. And now we've got a link bar. Pretty sweet. We want to get a logo in there. So there's lots of different ways that you can do that. You can actually import your client's logo if you have it. I'll show you how to do that. So again, we've got this comments section, and most of the stuff that you need is going to be found here. If you click on this comments section and you drag in an icon, and no, it's not going to be a little rectangle. You can do an icon search or double click, and Balsamiq is going to give you over 500 different options. This is just a placeholder. It doesn't really matter, but since we're doing billionaire balloon, and it kind of has something to do with flying, I'll put this stupid little plane in there. Fantastic. You can change it to be smaller or larger. The tricky things with icons is that they have set sizes. If you need something different, you'll probably want to drag in an image, which I'll show you how to do later on as well. So now we've got this extra large icon that's sitting as a placeholder. So again, I can drag it in a line to the middle of my rectangle, or I can snap it all the way to the side or up to the corner. If you drag it, I'm going to put it right here in the middle with a little bit of padding, kind of eyeball it and drop her there. So now you can see we're getting closer to what I had here. We've got a bit of a nav bar, a top section. We've got this link bar. And now we want to add, let's say, a phone number up at the top. So what we're going to do, it's time to get our next best friend. You'll use text just as often as you use rectangles, probably more. Now, I could go to this text section, and there is a metric shit ton of different types of text that you can drop in. You're going to be tempted to use things like a big title or a subtitle, but I'm going to tell you not to. The reason is, every time you do one of these, you're going to have to figure out the spacing. So for example, if I drag in a big title, billionaire balloon, I usually want to have a subheadline that aligns right under that, and it's a pain in the butt. It's the best way to waste your money. Just coming up with this on the fly, folks. I mean, I'm a pretty good copywriter, but you wouldn't believe how close to my real process this is. Now we've got these two different things, but I've got to manually kind of figure out spacing. It can get really messy. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to use, we're going to ignore pretty much all the different types of text and just use this one, just text. It's going to drop in this heinously ugly thing with a whole bunch of different formatting, which I'll just cover right now. So there's a few little hotkeys that you want to use, because if you use the things in the properties bar, and you'll see as I click them, if I set something bold in the properties bar for your text box, it's going to make everything in there, unless it's got some competing code, all go bold. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. Maybe you just want one line with italics. Maybe you just want one thing underlined. So I'm going to blow this up to 24 just so that you guys can see it a little bit better. And then we're going to click in. And this is just all kinds of different short codes that I'm going to show you. So if you want something bolded, it's these asterisks. So bold copy. And you can see, whoops, that's going to go there. One of the most useful things, though, if you want to avoid using a title or a subtitle, these separate kind of fonts or separate text boxes, you can change the size inside of here manually by doing the following. So you can type with this weird sort of curly bracket, the curly bracket, size, the colon, and then the size that you want. So in this case, we're going to go 40. And then this will become title, and you have to end it. If you just leave that open, you'll look like a jerkwad because it's not going to actually do anything for you. So you have to close that off by adding just size to the end. And suddenly you've got a different size of font right inside of there. Now, if you want a bit of a cheat or sizing that I kind of use as standards when I'm creating these wireframes, you want your big bad headlines to be about size 40. You want your crossheads or your subheadlines to be about size 24. So best way to waste your money. Then you want your normal font, like I say, to be somewhere between normally 18 to 20. None of this stuff like when you're in Word and using 12 and 11. And as you can see, I've prepared some beautiful fonts here. So in Word, or beautiful copy, I mean, not fonts. You can see in Word, this actually doesn't look too bad. It looks a little bit imposing, but this headline looks like it could actually work. Trouble is, on the web, when you drop this in, I've committed the cardinal crime of deleting a curly bracket. Now I've also mucked up my sizing. And now I've mucked up everything. I'm a failure. I'm failing you all. So if you have a line break, you have to, and it's nice that this failed for me because not only do I look like an idiot, but it can be a teachable moment. You have to have sizing on both or you'll see it broke just like it did for me. So now that headline that looked kind of okay in Word does not look okay in here. And this is how it makes you a better copywriter. It makes you understand how much real estate and space that clever headline you thought you came up with is actually taking up. And you can see too, if I take this delicious, wonderful body copy and chunk that in, even at size, right now it's size 24, but even at size 18, not cool for a hero section. It's gigantic. So you want to start with basically body copy that defaults at say 18 to 20. It'll depend on your wireframe, on the mockup you're doing, and your headlines at 40 to help you understand how much space you're taking up. Now, if you want to add additional formatting to this, you have to be careful because if I add asterisks to bold this and I add them inside, it's not going to work. It's going to break. So any other formatting you want to add has to be outside of these brackets. So again, we've got asterisks for bolding. Then if you want to go italics, you can use underscores, and that'll make just that section of copy italics. If you want to underline it, and you don't want to underline the whole thing, again, remembering that if I do this, everything gets underlined, which is fine if you want everything underlined because you're insane. But if you don't, then you can use ampersands. And those are the ones that you're going to use most often. So those are the shortcuts you're going to use most often, and you'll probably want to commit to memory. The nice thing is, if you ever forget, just go to the text section, drag this in, and it's got all this different formatting here, so you can see how you would do strike-throughs, how would you do links, how you do different colors of fonts. So we got off on a tangent. All I was really trying to do was add a phone number up there, and I went deep into text. Sorry, guys, but now we know. So we want to add a phone number. We're going to add my phone number, which is totally real, which is 1-800-SEXY-BALLOONS. And then I'm going to fix my curly brackets. Now we've got 1-800-SEXY-BALLOONS. You can resize this just by dragging, obviously, if you're watching. But the other thing that you can do, if I wanted to place it, if I wanted to move this 1 pixel at a time, I can use my arrow keys, left, right, up, down. If you really want to just make a tiny movement and dragging it is too hard. If you want to move it 10 pixels at a time, if you hold down Alt, Control and Alt. Yeah, I think it's Alt, but normally you can move it around more pixels at a time by holding down Alt. So I want to drag this and plop it right there at the top, and now you can see just like here, we've got our nav bar figured out. We've got these links put in. We've got our icon, and we're ready to go. We're ready to build out some more of this wire. So now we want to put in a hero section, because every good page has some kind of hero section. So this is where it gets kind of interesting. If we go to common, normally hero sections have some sort of background image. You can drag the image in, and it's going to ask you to fill in some kind of descriptor here. So I'm just going to go hero image. You can see when I click away, okay, it's got kind of this template. We're going to drag that to size it up, rectangle. But here's the problem. If I add copy on top of this, it's going to look kind of sort of ugly, messy, not so nice. So if we go again, billionaire balloon is the best way to waste your money. And I pop that on there. And I adjust because we're just going to have this section be a headline. It looks kind of, sort of, not awesome. Because you've got these X's going through. It's not what you want out of your wire. So what we're going to do instead, we're going to drag this hero image down there. We're going to leave it alone for now. And we're going to bring in our old pal, the rectangle. So drag this sucker in. Again, position it. And just have it cover over top of the image. And we're going to give that a green background. But now, how's the dev going to know that we want there to be an image back there? Well, the nice thing is you can just change the opacity, and now they can see, hey, there's a hero image behind that, but now you've got a place to put your font or to put your copy. The tricky thing is now that's buried because just like Photoshop and a whole bunch of editors, this has layering. So you can right-click to bring that to front. And now we've got this nice looking hero section where we've got a hero image in the back. We've got a rectangle that makes it easier to read the copy in the front. Tricky thing is, what if we want to move this? What if we decide actually we need some padding? Well, we'd have to move all these elements one at a time, and things could get pretty ugly pretty quick. What we can do is let's move this image back where we had it. Let's move this rectangle back on top. And just like you can do in any Word editor, you can actually group all of this together so that it's one solid thing. The tricky thing is, well, how do we group it if it's layered? So how do we group it if one thing is on top of the other? So I'll click away just so you can see right now, if I was to right click, I don't really have any options for grouping. There's nothing I can do. If I hold down the control button, so I hold control, now I could group my headline and my rectangle and move those around. And I haven't actually grouped yet. But again, we've got that pesky hero image in the back that we'd have to move and then group and then try to reposition. So all I have to do is, and I really hope that I've got this right, hold down control and right click, think, until I'm not a pro. And you can select the thing behind it, I think. I did this morning and it worked like a dream. But of course, when you're live on the internet, it's going to make you look like a moron. No, here we go. Select image right at the top. So I'm holding down control. I've selected the other two elements. I'm so happy this worked. I still look like an idiot because it took me like a million minutes to figure it out. But now I can select that hero image and boom, hold everything down. And up at the top here, you've got group or just Control G and ungroup. So we've grouped that all together. And now we can move it as one solid unit, which is really nice. So just drop that back there. And that's grouping. We can see actually that my image, though, in the back looks a little bit sloppy. Not all my edges are aligned. They're not all the same size. So I'm going to go, that's a little bit ugly. Ungroup it all. Look at what my rectangle height is, 419, 120. I can right click, select the hero image. I've already forgotten, 419. And now, everything's the same size, everything works. So again, I can hold down control, right click, select the hero image at the back, select my other elements, and group them all together. And we've got this nice hero section to play with. So if you want to edit elements within a section, you just double click that group. And you can see this popped up here when I did that. So I'll hit the escape key. If I just select this, it's all grouped together. It's not going to allow me to edit things just with a single click. But if you double click, now you can go back just into your group. You're not going to impact anything around it, and you can change this up. So we want to add a sub headline here. You can see I've set my default property for this to be 40. So the tricky thing is, if I want to add text to this, it's all going to be size 40. So rather than do that, we're going to set this back to what the normal body copy size is, which is 20. Go back in here and just use our sizing shortcut to make this big again. Now, let's say I wanted to add a crosshead. We're going to make that crosshead around 24. Okay, Joel's ideas are all amazing. Add that back in. Now this looks really, really weird because it's not centered. So we push center. That subhead looks a little bit small. We can up that to 30. And now we've got this text. We can position it wherever we want. And we've got this little hero section. Hitting escape will help us exit the group. And now we're set. So we've got our hero section roughly. What if we want to create a section that looks more like, and we see these all the time, this, logos, right? How do we get these all aligned? How do we create something like that? So if we go back, we're going to go back to our old trusty friend, the rectangle. But instead of just doing it manually, I'm going to select this one at the top, copy paste, because it's going to be the nice right width and everything for me. Give it a different color background just to show that there's a break there. We're going to give it a little bit more space. We can adjust that later. But let's say we want to add a line of logos. Well, here's the tricky thing. We drag in an image. And we go, we'll name it logo 1. And let's say I actually don't want to call this logo 1. I decide later I want to change the name. Well, if you just double click on it, it's going to ask you to import something. So that's not going to work. If you right click on it, there's no real way to change it. You can go properties. There's no real way to change the font. So luckily the shortcut is simply just hold down Control and double click, and you can edit the font inside of an image. It's infuriating when you don't know how to do that and you're trying desperately to do it. So remember, hold down Control, double click, and we go. So we've got logo 1. We want it to be, let's say, about this size for this section. But we want to have multiples spread across. So we're going to copy and paste a bunch of these. And uh-oh, I'm cross-eyed, and look at that. Oh, they're hideous. They're not aligned at all. They don't line up. They're not spaced out nicely. My client's going to hate this. I want to float me out to sea and give me a Viking funeral. So what we're going to do is hold down Control and select all of those elements. And just like we used the line before, we're going to right-click, and now we can get these all nicely aligned. So we can align them all in the center, but that's going to stack them up really, really weird. So what we want to do is we're going to align them, not center, but middle. Okay, so that looks better. They're all at least on the same plane. But the tricky thing now is, well, we want that spacing perfect. And you could, like me, be an idiot and muck around with it and do stupid things until you figure out how to do this properly. Or you can just do this. Select them all and right-click. And now you can see it's got distribute centers horizontally or space out horizontally. The two objects on the end are going to act as the endpoints that you want it to be spaced out in. So if I actually want this to be spaced out further, I need to move those. So again, we'll select them all, right-click, space out horizontally, and boom, that looks a heck of a lot better. Everything's nicely and evenly spaced. Now we're going to use grouping again. So holding down Control, selecting them all. We're going to make these a group so that they all move uniformly, because I can do this, but it gets a little bit tricky. And we want to be able to move them all at once and not have to select them like that every time. So again, back up to the top, clicking group, and now these all become one group. If you move around like a maniac, it's not going to snap for you. You can see those blue lines only come up when I'm moving slow enough for them to happen. So again, if you want something to snap, move slowly. So now, if I want, I can drag it and we could have it right in the middle, but we probably want some copy above it, just giving these some context. So I'm going to drag it down, leave enough room for my copy. That's all grouped together. Again, if we want to edit, they all say logo 1 right now. So if you want to change that, just double click. Now you're only editing stuff in the group. If we want to edit these captions, Control double click, and now we can edit and say logo 2, Control double click, logo 3, control double click, logo 4. This is riveting webinar material, I'm sure, watching me manually change numbers. So apologies in advance. I swear to God, we'll make this more exciting in a second. We're done. We hit escape. And now we want to add some sort of headline here. So again, we've grouped this all together. But if we want to, we can double click rather than create a whole new text box every time, and paste it and drag it down and change this to a few of the snooty billionaires I've helped. Wonderful. Looks a little bit odd because we want our primary headline to stand out more. So what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll change this down so it's more like a sub headline. Again, making sure that you've got everything in brackets. And if we wanted to format this differently, just a reminder, make sure you're putting that stuff outside. So a few of the snooty billionaires I've helped. Great. And now it snaps to, and we've got this cool little logo line section. It's all set up. Now, one thing, let's say we want to use this element on multiple pages. We want to be able to really quickly access it. We don't have to create 6 logo boxes, a headline. We want to be able to pull it out just like we do an image or circle button. There's a way to do that, and it's called symbols. So you can see right now my symbols field is totally empty. But that's all about to change. So what we're going to do is just like before, holding control, I'm going to select all the elements that I want to turn into a symbol. And now I'm going to group them together so that this is all one item. Again, I can move it all. You can see now on this properties bar, I have the option to convert to symbol. So what I can do is call this my logo bar. And click convert to symbol. And now when you go to symbols, I can literally just drag this in. So if I'm working on other pages and I just want to have this element and I don't want to have to come back and copy and paste or come back to an old mockup, you can turn them into symbols. I'm going to pause here and say that while I'm showing you how to create a lot of stuff today, there are a lot of really neat pre-made symbols that I found that you can use. So if you go to support.balsamiq.com/resources/mockups to go, or just Google Balsamiq mockups to go instead of typing in that huge convoluted thing like some sort of idiot, you can get this huge library where they've got all kinds of stuff. So if we go into controls, now there's all kinds of elements that you can import right into your projects. And instead of having to build them, you can import them and they'll adjust to all of your specifications, all the properties you've set for your project. So for example, if you wanted to introduce, say, a search bar to that nav, you could download this search packet and now you don't have to muck around or create this for yourself. There's just all of these pre-made. It's a huge shortcut and well worth your time to come in here and check before you start building something manually. See if somebody else has already done it. The one tricky thing is that when you import symbols, they only stay with this project. If I launched a new project, those symbols don't come with me. So what you want to do is create one master template that you use for all of your projects and save it new every time. So that next time I want to work on a site, I go to my master template, I go project, save it as a completely different name. All my symbols are there. All the stuff I need is there. Everything's automatically set. You can have your browser ready to go, your rectangle ready to go, even your nav bar ready to go, and save yourself heaps of time so you only really ever have to create this once. So what else can I show you? We've got some nice even spacing. I show you how to align these. I've showed you how to create these groups and symbols and sections. Let's talk about buttons really quick. But there's all kinds of different buttons, date choosers, things that you can pick. If you drag in a button, again, it's teeny tiny. You're going to need to format this thing. So let's make it a little bit larger. And let's go ahead and double click and make my call to action. Take my money, you glorious beast, which is a wonderful call to action that I highly recommend. Nothing but huge conversion numbers out of that. Again, using this properties bar, if you ever lose this, if that ever goes away, you just right click and hit properties or hit Control+. And what's neat here is you can Change the colors, and it automatically changes the font color and all that for you. If you want to have something like an icon in there, again, you can do icon search. So you can just type in, hey, maybe I want to have a phone. Put that right in there. You don't have to go get a different icon, manually drag it in. You can just add that nicely. You can make it huge. You can make it teeny tiny. We'll leave this at small here. All right. So we've added a button, and just like our link bar, you can actually make these buttons link to real web addresses, link to other mockups. So if you want to have a more interactive sort of mockup for your client to play with, if you want to build out a prototype, this is where you get started. If people are interested, maybe I'll host another webinar, hopefully less long-winded and ridiculous than this one, showing you how to do exactly that. So we've got our hero section, these things together because I've added a new element. We've got this line of logos. Now, what about, we talked a little bit about text and formatting. What if you want a bulleted list? Because as writers, we really like our bulleted lists, right? So we're going to go back to text, and rather than copy and paste, I'm just showing you where to find this again. You can get it out of this text bar. You can literally just type in text. Remember, the quick add is your best friend. I'm going to drag that, or just click and pop it in. Right click, properties. We want to make this, let's say 20, and we want to have a bulleted list. This doesn't show you the format for bulleted lists. The way you do a bulleted list is simply have an asterisk in front of each element. So balloons are great. Oh, ballons, I'm getting French here. Balloons are great. You love balloons. You love giving, oh, you love giving me your money. Now we've got a nice bulleted list. The crappy thing about bulleted lists are that if you try to center them or move them around, those bullets don't come with you. So if you need to do that, the workaround is simply to take, actually, you know what? I'm not going to get into that workaround. Basically, you'll have to move these around for now. What you can do, basically what I was going to show you, is you create your bullets, and then you simply have two separate boxes and group them together later so that you can have these, you know, the words be far out and then have the bullets kind of follow them or whatever. So you just have to use two text boxes. That's kind of the gist of it. That's about as easy as it can get. So now we want to have a section where we've got, let's say, some images like these, image, text, image, text. What I haven't shown you yet that's really cool, and I'll show you now, is if I go into this group to edit it, and I want to get to, I'll ungroup them for the time being, and I'll select the hero image. And I actually want to have an image there. I don't want to have this weird hero image. Well, I can add, if you've got client images or client logos, it's as simple as pressing this plus button instead of the default placeholder. And I went out and found a beautiful for billionaire balloon. Isn't that nice? Look at him. He's dumping coins or something over the side. It's wonderful. Let's all just take a moment to appreciate that. And now I'll group that all back together. Hit escape. Now we've got this nice actual hero image. So you can get pretty legit with what you show your clients, how close you show to the final product. But this is what I was going to say before. We've got these common. We're going to bring our image down in here. And we're going to call this handsome man. We want to have a handsome man, and then we want to have some text beside it. Well, again, I'm going to show you this twice. We can use an actual image if we want to. I went out and found this snooty billionaire. Doesn't he look nice? So we can actually drop him straight into the wireframe by importing him. And now we want to have some text. So again, you can find it up here. Pop that in. Delete that. Now we're going to have multiple different sizes of text here because we want a headline. So again, size, let's say 32. This man loved going on his balloon ride. You will too. Now remember, if you want to have things on separate lines, that's fine. But if you just have size on both sides of these, it's going to break. It's going to look stupid. You're going to be frustrated. So just make sure after every line break, you add that in. Wonderful. I can size this out, make it bold, unbold it, bold it manually. And I will add a bit of copy here. So, a thrill ride of a lifetime, soaring over a field, dumping cash on people who don't respect you. Could anything be better? No. So again, just resize, and it'll snap to. It'll show you where the middle of the image that you're trying to align it with is. Usually, sometimes, there we go. If you want to align it that way. Remember, if you wanted to, you could right-click and align these in the middle more quickly than I did. And you can make sure that you're aligned with the middle of the browser, just like that. So again, recapping, we've built out our navigation, we've built out our hero section and added a button. We've created this logo section using a line, and we turned it into a symbol that we can access anytime, which is going to speed us up just tons and tons and tons. We've added a links bar, we've added icons. You can also use icons for things like that. So that's pretty much the gist of it. You can see how everything I've done here is some iteration on something we actually have done. So again, there's other things you can drop in, like this would just be a video player. You can pop that right in. Don't have to create that for yourself. You can have different font sizes. I showed you by changing the size manually inside, or if you want everything to be uniform, you can use it there. If you want everything bold or everything not bold, you can use that, as long as there aren't other competing things, like this is bold all the time because I've told it to be that way. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. I've been jabbering for 45 minutes. But basically, you've got the tools now to go have buttons, rectangles, link bars, browsers. You've got the sizing, 1350 for the browser, 4016 down, 1200 for the rectangle inside, 3900 to give it a bit of padding. I hope this was useful to you guys. I hope it was valuable for you. If you have questions, if you're someone who donated like that was a ripoff, and I need more for my money and I'm going to harass you via email, like, please send me your questions. If there's a specific thing that you wish I would have covered, something that you'd like me to show you how to do, if you're interested in seeing how you can build that live prototype, right now you can see, I don't have anything linked, but this would be what you could show your client in a screen share and walk through it. I'm happy to share those types of things. I hope that I've shown you, a little bit about how to format things, some of the shortcuts that you can take. But please, I want this to be as valuable as possible. This really, it maybe has looked complicated with things like adding asterisks and stuff, but I swear, you spend 1 hour with this stuff, you build one template out, and suddenly you're churning out wireframes in 15 minutes to half hour, totally custom for your clients. So yeah, I hope that that has been valuable. If not, send me some hate mail. And I'll be answering questions in the Facebook group as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks so much to the Copywriting Club for letting me do this. Kira and Rob, you guys are awesome. And we'll see you guys around. Thanks.